Attention bowlers, we're going to get started. Welcome back to Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. This is Tony Del Monaco at Paul Metivier. The match format is 5 strings with 14 points on offer. 2 points per string, 4 for total pinfall. If there's a tie, the points are evenly split. I'm Steve Kelly on the call for the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. It is good as always to have you along with us. This match has been played on Wednesday, March 12th, 2025. We'll start out with Tony Del Monaco, our away bowler, on lane 29. With a working ball. Left with a 9-pin after the second ball. And the opener will be a 9. So anyways, yes, hello and good evening. I'm Steve Kelly on the call for this ACST Class B Northern Conference match, round 11, between Tony Del Monaco and Paul Metivier at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on this Wednesday evening. And Tony Del Monaco drops 7. That's the 7-10-4. 7-10-4 for Tony Del Monaco. He's thinking long and hard about that wood down there. There's one that's out rather forward, and the one that's in front of the 4 and the 2 and the 4 is dicey at best. But he'll get the kick, and he'll get the spare, drawing first blood. That's Tony Del Monaco proud of that shot. And I think we have that on replay. Let's see him play that wood once again, shall we? Watch him play that left wood that I just said was dicey. But I love it when bowlers prove me wrong. Tony Del Monaco. Tony Del Monaco Grand Prix opening up with a spare. Brief score correction down there. So folks, I'd like to highlight a couple of things. First, this broadcast is going to have subtitles and live captioning enabled. If you enjoy this feature and would like some visual aid for any audio stuff, please feel free to enable that feature in the controls below. And that's Tony Del Monaco filling his spare with 7 on the head pin and another split of 7, a little less favorable this time. It's the 7, the 9, and the 10. There is some wood down there. The one that is diagonal to the 9 might be the shot to take. See what Tony Del Monaco does, and he almost gets it. He plays the wood that I thought he was going to play, and what I consider to be the correct wood for the spare shot, but offer not accepted. He's left with the 9 pin for a 10 box. And he'll take a 10 box for 36 after 3. Folks, throughout the match, I'm going to be with you describing the play-by-play action and providing up-to-the-minute scoring based on the best of my ability. And, of course, the always very fun 3-way score handshake that is the ACST scoring experience between the electronic scoreboard at the house, the paper copy, and my separate copy. The paper copy the bowlers maintain is the one that's official. It is not the one on the stream. So if you notice any errors or you see something is off, don't worry. The one on the stream is for the convenience of the broadcast, but it will not go in as the official score. And Tony Del Monaco, working ball on the second, on the 4 horseman left side, punches the 2, leaves the 1, the 4, and the 7. And he'll take one more out for an 8. 44 and 4. He's 2 for 4 on the head pin with 2 splits. That's the story for Tony Del Monaco at the moment. Tony Del Monaco, his first time at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire this evening. He dropped 7. He missed the head pin, but he got a decent mix out of it. He's got 1, 2, 4. That's Tony Del Monaco down there. And he'll skate 2 and leave the head pin. It's Tony Del Monaco on the red. He's bowling on lane 29. And that will be a 10 box for Tony Del Monaco. That puts him at 54 after 5. And that will be the half. Let's take a look at the half for Tony Del Monaco. Here he has 1 mark with 2 10 boxes, a spare and a 7 fill, put him at 26 after 2, and then 2 10s and an 8 box brought him to 54 after 5. We're going to say hello this evening to Paul Metivier for the first time. On the head pin, drops 9, fast 9, 7 is on the deck. So I very carefully just nudge the zoom cam over just a little bit to get the left side corner of lane 29. It was visible, but we just like to get a better frame. And Metivier, Paul Metivier, he misses the 7 pin off to the right. First ball, first box yips, I like to call them. Paul Metivier will miss the 2nd and get the 3rd. That's what in some circles call a Paul Grant special, in which you miss the 2nd and get the 3rd. It's a $1 donation to Candlepins for Cancer per occurrence. Don't know what Candlepins for Cancer is? We're going to talk more about that later on in the broadcast this evening. Paul Metivier, 10 after 1. Compare that to 9 after 1 for Tony Del Monaco. Paul Metivier on the head pin again, and he'll split 7 this time. 5, 6, 10. And it's going to be a rough one. He pokes out the 5 and leaves the 6 and the 10. It is not an unwise decision to opt for pins rather than marks, especially if the leave is rough. But Metivier's 3rd ball misses the 6 and the 10 off to the left, and that will result in an 8 box for 18 after 2. Paul Metivier, the bowler you are witnessing right now in the blue, is our home bowler at Leda Lanes this evening. He has a season record of 73 and 67 with 10 matches bowled. And Paul Metivier is off to the left, takes the 7 and only the 7 on his first ball. Paul Metivier, when he's at home at Leda Lanes, he has a season record of 34 and 36 with .94 as a .94 win-loss ratio, and Paul Metivier almost converts the 1 drop to a 10 drop, but he leaves the 10 pin. So it won't be a mark, it'll be a potential 10 box cleanup opportunity for Paul Metivier. And it will be a 9, 27 after 3. When Paul Metivier is on the road, which he is not this evening, he is 39 and 31. That's a 1.26 win-loss ratio. His season average is 108 on the nose. When he's home, his average is 105.64. When he's away, his average is 110.36, aggregating to 108 when you combine the two. Paul Metivier is on the head pin there. Splits 8, 4-5. We've got Donovan Pavlik and Bob Allard. Ooh, and that's a great spare for Paul Metivier. And actually, let's watch that again, because that caught me off guard. I didn't think that was going to go in the slightest. How does that go? He plays the wood on the 4 and kicks over to the 5. What a mark by Paul Metivier right there. Anyway, so yes, we have Bob Allard and Donovan Pavlik to the right of us on lanes 31 and 32 bowling their ACST Class A match. And oh no, that's a 1 fill for Paul Metivier. Quarter Worcester on the 2 pin. That match to the right of me is not being streamed, so I'm not entirely sure what game they're in. I didn't check, and I can't quite see their scoreboard, but just giving you some awareness of what's going around us. Paul Metivier, 7, 8, 9, or 10 box, and it'll be a 7. So both bowlers on the board with a mark, but Paul Metivier missed opportunity with the 1 fill. That's 45 after 5 for Mr. Paul Metivier, and 54 after 5 for Tony Del Monaco. A difference of 9 in Tony Del Monaco's favor, both bowlers with 1 mark, but Tony Del Monaco has the more favorable fill of 7 on that mark. So that's the story at the moment. So let's say hello to Tony Del Monaco once again. Let's talk about Tony Del Monaco. He has a season record of 110 and 58. He's bowled 12 matches this season, 1.90 win-loss ratio. When he's away, which he is tonight, he's 60 and 24, a 2.5 win-loss ratio. And there is Tony Del Monaco, splitting 8. That's the 2 and the 7. Piece of wood across the 2, perpendicular. And he's on it, but he punches a little bit too full down the 2 pin. Tony Del Monaco's away average is 114.53. It's 4 points higher than his home average of 110.53. aggregating to 112.53 as an overall season average. And that's a 10 box for Tony Del Monaco, 64 after 6. Tony Del Monaco, when he's home at Riverwalk Lanes, is 50 and 34 with a 1.47 win-loss ratio for the season. His high single is 160. His high series is 630 this season. Great for Class B. Heck, that's great for Class A. Here comes Tony Del Monaco. On the headpin, watch out. That's a strike for Tony Del Monaco. It's a great ball for Tony Del Monaco. Working on a strike. And he's off to the right of the headpin, but got a decent sidewall bounce. 1, 2, 7, 10, 8 so far in the fill. With room for more. One more ball. And he'll nudge the headpin down and the 2 down. A solid 7 fill, better than a liquid 1. That's 81 after 7 for Tony Del Monaco. 2 marks this game. 4 for 7 on the headpin. 3 of those 4 headpin shots have been splits. And he'll sail between the 7 and the 8 for a 7 box. That puts Tony Del Monaco at 88 after 8. One heck of a match tonight here at Leda Lanes, Class B North, round 11. Visiting bowler Tony Del Monaco versus Paul Metivier, the home bowler. Tony Del Monaco, I believe it is his first season in the ACSTs in Class B North Division 2. Paul Metivier, this is his second season. He was Class B North Division 3 last season. He's Class B North Division 4 this season. Monaco splits 7, 7, 10, 4. Oh, and he won't quite convert. The 4 will skate by. And he'll pin it out the best way he can. That'll be a 9 box. 97 after 9 is the confirmed current total for Anthony Del Monaco. If you're just tuning in, we're only in the first game of 5. Still plenty of bowling to go. Anyone's game. Difference of 52 with Tony Del Monaco 4 boxes ahead of Paul Metivier. Let's see what he can do. He fires on the headpin. That's a strike. His second strike of the game. His second strike of the match. For Mr. Tony Del Monaco. And we'll see if I can get that on the replay. I'm not sure if I have that working at the moment. Not quite. So we'll see if we can get that worked on. But Tony Del Monaco with 2 strikes and 1 spare this game. That puts him at 107 and a ball in the 10th. Bonus balls commencing now for Tony Del Monaco. He's to the right of the headpin and drops 6 so far in the fill. 1 more ball to complete the fill. He can get 10 off of this for a big 20 for a potential 117 first game. On the strike, it'll be a 6. He whiffs it on the second ball. End of game 1 for Tony Del Monaco. 113 with 3 marks. He averages 112.53, so he's over his season average. Just a little under his away average of 114.53, but over his season average in general. So 3 mark 113 for Tony Del Monaco. That'll be the benchmark for Paul Metivier to catch up to. Or not necessarily to catch up to, but to match, because he's 5 boxes behind our home bowler. Paul Metivier on lane 30. And he drops a quick 9 and leaves the 9. Diagonal piece of wood in front of the 9 pin. And Paul Metivier is just a little bit off. That piece of wood is difficult to shoot at, so even if you do hit it just like that, you have a potential to get a deflection. So that's a 9 box for Paul Metivier, 54 after 6. He's 4 for 6 on the headpin with 2 splits so far. Paul Metivier in this season, his high single is 144, his high series is 597. We're off and underway in the final quarter of the first game. Paul Metivier drops a nice 10, and that's a strike for Paul Metivier. We've seen a fair amount of these from both of our bowlers tonight, where if you're on the head pin, you're going to drop a lot, either 9 or 10. That's 64 and a bonus in the 7th for Paul Metivier. Tony Del Monaco went 6 for 10 on the head pin and achieved 4 splits, while Paul Metivier currently is 5 for 7 on the head pin with 2 splits. To give you some extracurricular stats. 71% head pin percentage for Paul Metivier right now, and he'll miss the head pin but get a decent mix of 6 so far. The bag of 6, the 1, 2, 3, 4. The Lawrence Welk special in a 3-4 count. A 1, and a 2, and a 3, and a 4. Oh, and wow. Paul Metivier will miss his target, and you saw his reaction. I'm sure that was not at all how he wanted to play that, but he got it anyway. And that's nothing short of unbelievable that went. So that's a spare on strike, a very unconventional spare on strike for Paul Metivier. So he gets a very merciful mark, and now gets some extra bonus pin opportunity. And I guess the ride had to end somewhere, because that's a 4 fill for Paul Metivier with 88 and 9. But that ties Tony Del Monaco at the same point in the game. And Paul Metivier he'll just miss the head pin on the correct side, wanting to hit it on the outside, the danger zone, to try to get the amount of spread. As Abodeely said, a lot of pro bowlers will go for that outside hit on the head pin to try to get more of a splash. It's high risk, high reward. But unfortunately, that's going to result in a 6 box for Paul Metivier. That puts him at 94 in 9. Now he's down by 3 to Tony Del Monaco's 97 in the 9th. Paul Metivier connects with a 4. Takes a few, working ball. 1, 5, 3, 8, 9, 10. That's Donovan Pavlik to the right of Paul Metivier, in case you're wondering who that is. He bowls in Class A. I bowled him earlier this season. And Bob Allard as well, who I also bowled earlier this season. Oh, and Paul Metivier will pin it out for a 9, but the first game will go in favor of Tony Del Monaco by 10. 103 for Paul Metivier, and 113 for Tony Del Monaco, a difference of 10 in Tony Del Monaco's favor. Tony Del Monaco was 60% in the head pin. Paul Metivier started out promising, but then dropped to 50 in the last 3 boxes. Tony Del Monaco with 3 marks, the same as Paul Metivier's, but he raked in additional bonus pins, 5 more than Paul Metivier, 20 to his 15, averaging 6.7 per mark. Paul Metivier's 1 fill on that spare was really kind of the killer there. Sometimes it's the small things, and you just gotta really kind of not let that get to you, especially in a 5-string match like it is tonight. So that was the story of the first game, 113-103. Tony Del Monaco takes the first game with 2 points so far, and we're moving on to the second game now. Here at this Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour, this 5-string evening match on a Wednesday night at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on Amherst Street. Leda Lanes and Kegler's Den. Come check it out. Sign-ups will be opening tomorrow at 1 p.m. for the Rays Easter Classic at Leda Lanes. Check it out on Facebook on the Candlepin chat group so you can get your chance to sign up if you wish to bowl in it. It's a 20-string tournament. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And there will be very high demand for it this year. I can tell you that. So if you want to bowl, you better get yourself to the Candlepin chat group and get that form when Lexi posts it. That's a spare for Tony Del Monaco to start out the first box of the second game. 10 and a bonus after 1 is the opener. Tony Del Monaco working on a spare. 39 strikes, 152 spares, and 139 tens is Tony Del Monaco's seasonal strike spares and tens so far. And oof, that's a... Well, it's a grade 11 box for Tony Del Monaco. A 1 fill on the 10 on the far right. Oh, and he almost converts for a spare. The angry second ball. But he leaves the 5-pin, the kingpin. There's Bob Allard on frame. And that's going to be a 10 box for Tony Del Monaco. It's what could have been, but it's 21 after 2 for Tony Del Monaco. 2 frames in. 2 strikes, 2 spares for Tony Del Monaco. 1 strike, 2 spares for Paul Metivier so far. Here comes Tony Del Monaco on the headpin. Look out. Drops 9. 7 on the deck. 4 pieces of wood to the right of it. Settling. 1 will even touch the 10. 1 will roll out of play. 10 pin even got a bit of a wiggle out of it. More of a wiggle than I thought it was going to. And a second pin will come over to take the 10. I mean, not the 10 pin, the 7 pin. But it's going to stay up, so it's going to be a spare shot for Tony Del Monaco. Oh, and that piece of wood deflects the ball away. He caps it. Heartbreaker right there. Rough when that happens. Tony Del Monaco, I believe. I'll wait for the call on that. Just because I looked away for a second. I'll mark that as a 10 until I see otherwise. 31 after 3 for Tony Del Monaco. Tony Del Monaco on lane 29 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Tony Del Monaco recently subbed in the Friday Night Pro League. Put out a monstrous performance at Central Park Lanes. I believe myself and Paul Grant covered that match. That's over on Candlepin Bowling Network if you want to go back and see Tony Del Monaco with a really impressive debut as a sub bowler in the Friday Night Pro League. So he's got a working ball here. Split a 7. And this will be for a 10 box. That'll be an 8 for Tony Del Monaco. 39 after 4. And here's Tony Del Monaco. He's currently the number 2 seed in Class B North overall. He's currently number 1 in Class B North Division 2. He has 6 matches at or over 550 for the season, with 1 match at or over 600 for the season. And here he is to the right of the headpin. And he drops a few. That's about as much as I can say about that. That's the 4 horsemen left and the 6 and the 10. 6 up, 4 down. Tony Del Monaco off to the left, punches the 2, leaves the 1, the 4, the 6, the 7, and the 10. I love symmetry. Del Monaco trying to do some damage control. It'll be a 7 box for 46 after 5 for Tony Del Monaco. So the benchmark for Paul Metivier in the second game will be 46 pins. Tony Del Monaco, now he's cursed with the spare and the 1 fill for this half and this game, where Paul Metivier had that problem in the first game. So 2 10s, 1 spare for Tony Del Monaco, and 46 overall. Say hello to Paul Metivier. He's just getting his test slide in gear, his calibration, and off to the races he goes. Paul Metivier on the headpin, 1-2 pocket, full-ish, drops 7. That's a 3-6-10. Piece of wood across it. High probability of this going, and there it goes. That's a spare for Paul Metivier in the first. Both bowlers with a spare in the first ball. First box, that is. While we're waiting for that, here's Paul Metivier's stats. He's 73 and 67. He's number 3 in Class B North Division 4 right now, and the number 8th seed in Class B North overall. Paul Metivier working on a spare. On the headpin, and that's a heck of a work on a spare. That's a strike on spare for Paul Metivier. That's 30 after 2, plus a bonus for Paul Metivier. Fantastic way to put an exclamation point on a spare. I'll give you another chance to look at this real quick. So currently, yes, 3rd seed in B North Division 4 and the 8th seed in Class B North overall. On the strike, this was less of a rack ripper of a ball. He's off to the left. Still gets 1 more ball to fill, to complete the fill. It's 1, 3, 5, 8, 9, 10 for Paul Metivier for a spare shot, and another thin hit results in a 6 fill. That's the 1, the 8, the 9, and the 10 for Mr. Paul Metivier. And he'll poke another out. That's a 7 box, so he'll get a 20 in the first, a 16 in the second, and a 7 in the third for 43 after 3 for Paul Metivier. Paul Metivier, you may remember recently, I forget if it was on these lanes or the lanes to the right of us, Paul Metivier threw a perfect first half, and we threw, I want to say 88 in a ball, if I remember correctly. So Paul Metivier definitely has that drive in him. He has that fire in him to throw a nearly 100 half when he's on it. And will he get the spare? That's his third mark of this half for Paul Metivier, 53 after 4. Aside from the third box, he is just doing work down there. He's got the rhythm definitely dialed in right now. So he's got 53 after 4 and a bonus. It was 46 after 5 for Tony Del Monaco to catch you up. Bit of a thin hit to the right of the head pin. That's a 6 fill late falling pin. 1-2-7-9. Paul Metivier. It's a hard ball, and you saw his face right there. He threw that, and something was just off. Missed the target pin. The target pin is all that's left on the deck right now. He'll take a 10 box, and that puts Paul Metivier at 69 after 5. Much better fills than the first game, for sure. No 1 fills in sight for Paul Metivier this time. Tony Del Monaco is the one who's cursed with that. Both bowlers are 3 for 5 on the head pin, with only 1 split for Tony Del Monaco this game. Overall, Del Monaco is at a 60% head pin completion percentage, while Paul Metivier is at 53%, still trying to get things going. Tony Del Monaco 5 splits to Metivier's 2. But the split stat is deceptive. You can have a lower number if you simply just don't hit the head pin that much. So split stats, bear in mind, they can be a little bit tricky to kind of assess. And Tony Del Monaco will open up to the right of the head pin. He'll drop 4. That's the 1, 2, 4, 7, 8, and 10 standing on lane 30. And he'll clear out a few more, leaving the 1 and the 10 on the deck. Tony Del Monaco, 8, 9, or 10 box, and he'll take a 9, leaving the head pin. That's 55 after 6 for Mr. Del Monaco. Where are we this evening? We're at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on Amherst Street since 1959. Plenty of things to do here. If you watched Candlepin Stars and Strikes in the late 90s and early 2000s, this was the place it was filmed at. There's also Kegler's Den, automatic scoring, courtesy of Cubica AMF. And that's a spread eagle split for Tony Del Monaco to start things out in this ball. Spread eagles when you punch out the center, leaving the left and the right wings. It's a difficult shot to convert for a spare. As you can see there, Tony Del Monaco's second ball connected with the 6 and only the 6. You have to connect with a 3-6 or the 2-4 pocket in some way. And a lot of bowlers, sometimes they have the curse of just going down the center. Sometimes once, sometimes twice. And Tony Del Monaco, unfortunately, he'll take the 4 along with the 6. And that's a symmetrical 6 box. The 2, 3, 7, 10 were left on the deck. That's a rough 6 box for Tony Del Monaco. It's really a rough game for Tony Del Monaco right now, 61 and 7. 4 for 7 on the head pin with 2 splits. He's 10 for 17 on the head pin with 6 splits this match. Still early, but just keeping you up to date. Tony Del Monaco's to the right of the head pin. Drops 5. 1, 2, 4, 5, 9. And he's off to the right. Connects with the back row pin. This will be Tony Del Monaco shooting for somewhere between a 6 and a 10 box here on lane 30. He'll take everything out but the head pin. That's 70 after 8 for Tony Del Monaco, and that is confirmed. What more can I tell you about Tony Del Monaco? He has a 54% perfect box percentage and 6,752 seasonal total pins. He has 2 matches out of his 12 that were shutout victories in which he took all the points. He has 9 out of his 12 matches with double-digit victories, and that's really, really good. And that's a Caleri shot for Tony Del Monaco. It's one of these awkwardly named shots named after Bob Caleri. He was on WNDS Candlepin Stars and Strikes, as you can see in the picture. And it's basically the four horsemen plus the opposite sleeper pin in the back row that isn't in the corner. And Tony Del Monaco ran down the left side four horsemen, but he failed to take the sleeper. And he's left with the 9 pin, and he'll take a 9 box. That puts him at 79 in the 9th. Pausing real quick just to freeze the automatic scoring so we can just do some lane clearance and maintenance. Sometimes he's got to throw a few extra balls down there just to clear out the channel. As you recall from his third ball, it bounced all around and then it rolled back forward. That's 79 and 9 for Tony Del Monaco. Rough game. He's only had 1 mark, and it was only a 1 fill on that mark. Here comes Tony Del Monaco. On the head pin, dropping 9, leaves the 4 pin. And a heck of a 4-pin shot it's going to be. But it don't matter, because Tony Del Monaco is going to bookend this game with a spare in the 10th. 89 plus a ball. He can get to 99 if he can get a strike on spare for the fill. But other than that, it's going to be an under-average game for Mr. Del Monaco. Stay tuned for the fill. Then back to Paul Metivier. And he's on the head pin, oddly full-ish. That's going to be a 6 fill and a 95 in the 10th for Tony Del Monaco. Score confirmed. 2-0-8-2 game total for Tony Del Monaco. Rough second game, as I said before. He's got a spare in the first and a spare in the 10th. 1 fill and 6 fill. That 95-second game is not going to do him a lot of favors. Paul Metivier with a powerful first half. He's at 69 after 5. We'll see if Paul Metivier can reach 95 after 69 after 5 here on the ACST that you're watching. I'm Steve Kelly on this Wednesday evening at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire for Class B North in the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. It's great to have you along. Let's watch Paul Metivier on the head pin. Look out, will be a strike. Yes, it will. 79 and a bonus for Paul Metivier. Continuing his tirade down there on the lanes this game. So Paul Metivier with 1, 2, 3, 4 marks this game, and he's not done yet. He's filling a strike. Paul Metivier will drop 8. 5-3. Still 1 ball to go. That piece of wood is going to be interesting. In fact, let's get a closer look at that. It's just barely touching the 3. I feel like with enough force, the ball can take the 5, but I wouldn't rely on that piece of wood to do much for you. I think it's only going to be annoying. And knowing that, I think Paul Metivier wanted to play the right side of the 3. And he'll take an 8 on that strike. 87 and 6. For the 10 box, and yep, just like that. That was precisely what I was worried about. That piece of wood would deflect the pin and the ball in some way, so it's an 8 fill on the strike and a 9 box. That's 96 and 7 for Paul Metivier. And with that, Paul Metivier has taken the second game. Tony Del Monaco finished the second game at 95, so Paul Metivier, it's just gravy at this point. It's garbage time, but not for Paul. He's just trying to pad out the total right now. He'll split 5, 7, 10, 9, 3. Paul Metivier. And that's a great spare for Paul Metivier. Just pile them on. 106 and a ball in the 8th for Paul Metivier. Shaping up to be a great game in Game 2 for Paul Metivier, who didn't take the first game. Tony Del Monaco took the first game by 10, 113 to Paul Metivier's 103. But Tony Del Monaco faltering in the second game with a 95. Paul Metivier is now 106 and 8 plus a ball. And here we go on the head pin. Pins are still mixing. It's going to be a split of some kind. No, it will not be a split of some kind. It'll be a late falling pin resulting in an 8 fill. 114 and 8 for Paul Metivier. That's the 3 and the 5 on the deck. Excuse me, the 2 and the 5 on the deck. Pausing for a quick score correction. When there's late falling pins, the automatic score system may miss them because it grabs what is effectively a snapshot of what's down there, and if a pin falls late, it obviously doesn't know about it. So that's the Cubica system for you. Based on a 10-pin system in which pin action in 10-pin is a lot more definitive and much faster from ball impact to completion. And that will be, oof, a 9-box for Paul Metivier, though. 123 and 9. Currently at 226 after 2 games, with 1 to go. He has 5 marks of 9. So the majority of his game has been marks, and every fill has been over 5. Lowest was 6. Paul Metivier, one last ride of the second game. On the headpin. Got a weird drop of 6. 7, 8, 9, 5. It's Paul Metivier on lane 30. And I think this could go. Let's watch this. Oh, and he played the wood the way I thought was the most ideal way to play it, but he leaves the 8 and the 9. It was just kind of an awkward slide over. And this will be for the final box. It will be an 8. Paul Metivier will finish up with a 131. Absolutely crushing Tony Del Monaco in the second game by 36. And he's reclaimed the total, and he has the total by 26. So that difference of 10 was only in the first game. So Tony Del Monaco does have 2 points so far, but Paul Metivier came roaring back with both the game and the total as of the second game. Still 3 to go. This lead could still sway in anyone's favor. What do you think is going to happen? Let me know in the comments. So Paul Metivier 13 for 20 on the headpin with 4 splits. Tony Del Monaco 11 for 20, 6 on the 6 splits. And that's the story of the second game. But enough about the second game. Let's go to the third game. Tony Del Monaco is ready to go. So let's all be ready to go with Tony Del Monaco here on the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. I'm Steve Kelly for the ACST. Also check out 3 Ball Spare Conglomerate on YouTube. That's if you want to see some other matches that I've streamed, go check out that channel on youtube.com/@3ballspare. And plenty of other awesome things to watch. Highlights, shorts, you name it, we'll have it over there on 3 Ball Spare. That's an 8 drop for Tony Del Monaco. Wasn't on the head pin. He leaves the 1 and the 2 on the deck. Oh, and he spares it up. Great move by Tony Del Monaco to open up. Let's hope he doesn't get a 1 fill now. But he's at 10 after 1 and a bonus in the third. Eerily similar to the second game, but hopefully he can just get that fill ball under control. He did a decent job at it in the 10th frame of the second game, dropping 6, but let's see what he can do here. And that is going to be a 5 fill for Tony Del Monaco. He wasn't on the head pin, but it wasn't a disaster either. 1, 3, 6, 7, 10 for Tony Del Monaco right now. Here he goes on the head pin. Oh, and touches all 5. 10 pin's even wobbling. Even gets slightly tapped one last time by an exiting piece of wood. But it won't go. He'll just miss it off to the left, and that's a 9 box for Tony Del Monaco, and that's going to be 24 after 2 for Mr. Del Monaco. Stay with us for all the action as Tony Del Monaco battles Paul Metivier at Leda Lanes here on the ACST. Here comes Tony Del Monaco. And that's a 9 drop. Leaves the 10. Looked like a strike on paper, but nothing touched the 10. Except a piece of wood that looks like it's going to stop just short in front of it. I don't think it really necessarily increases the odds of taking it, maybe by like a percentage point or 2, but it's still a single pinch shot. And Tony Del Monaco will just miss it off to the right. Just thought about it a little bit too much. Tony Del Monaco is a left-handed bowler, so he wanted to do a crossover type ball. And I think he just crossed over a little bit too much. That's a Paul Grant special. Misses second, get the third. It's a $1 donation to Candlepins per cancer per occurrence. That's 34 after 3 for Tony Del Monaco. 1 for 3 on the head pin this game. 12 for 23 on the head pin this match with 6 splits. Talking about splits, there's Bob Allard over there. He's known as the Split King. And he was actually showing me the scoreboard when I was walking in. He goes, "You see the scoreboard?" And I knew exactly what he was talking about. He showed me the pepperoni pizza of red dots on his first ball. And I kind of shared his Whoa! But first of all, look at that spare by Tony Del Monaco. Holy moly, that 4-2-3-7. That drop for Tony Del Monaco. Wow. That was quite a heck of a unassisted spare for Tony Del Monaco. Wasn't expecting him to get that, but he's at 44 in a bonus after 4 with that impressive spare shot. But anyways, yeah, talking about the splits and Bob Allard. Oh, and not a headpin shot, but it ended up taking the headpin, and it's a 9-8, maybe a backdoor, not quite a backdoor, but it's a 9 fill, 53 after 4 for Tony Del Monaco. Lumberyard in front of the 10. Hopefully it won't overthink the crossover this time. But yes, in my match yesterday against Mike McIntosh, after I ran the numbers, there's a spare for Tony Del Monaco at the half. Real quick, that's 63 and a bonus after 5 for Tony Del Monaco, very similar to Paul Metivier's half last game. 3 marks, 110, 1 9-box. 9 box was his worst frame. 63 and a bonus for Del Monaco, to be continued here in the third. Again, like I said, I think this lead can be bounced around in anyone's favor here at this Class B North match here in the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. Say hello to Paul Metivier and see how he can respond. Here we go, Paul Metivier. But yeah, when I was bowling Mike McIntosh, I didn't realize this at the time because I was bowling, and I'm not so good at tracking headpins and splits literally while I'm bowling, but I realized I had like a 60-odd% headpin percentage, but I had a lot of splits. But sometimes, you know, like Bob Allard, who just is cursed with it, sometimes you just can't shake the splits. I guess you can't be too mad when you have that high of a number, because that means you're on the headpin, but it's still frustrating nonetheless, and it can still lose you matches. That's a 9-box for Paul Metivier all the while. 9 after 1. And now we're suddenly seeing Tony Del Monaco back in control, as it's been passed around a little bit this evening. Here's Paul Metivier off to the left of the headpin. Looks like a 6-drop. 1-3-8-9. And a heck of a 1-3-8-9 it's going to be. And it's going to be a heck of a spare for Paul Metivier. 19 after 2. He left a pile of pins in the center, and then ended up just pile driving the rest of them. And that was the general idea. Paul Metivier right now filling a spare to the left of the headpin, drops 6. 25 after 2. 1-3-6-8. And not so lucky this time on the full shot. He takes 2, leaves 2. That's the 3 and the 6 for Paul Metivier. For an 8, 9, or 10 box. And that'll be a 10 for Paul Metivier. 35 after 3 is where we stand. He's up by 1 in the third. Third box of the third game for Paul Metivier. 1 mark apiece at the equivalent points. Paul Metivier had a 6 fill versus Tony Del Monaco's 5 fill. And that is effectively where the difference is. It's only a difference of 1 so far. Metivier needs to turn on the gas. He's on the headpin, drops 6. That's the right side check mark. That's a 5, 6, 3, 10. And we'll see where we go from here for Paul Metivier. And he'll punch 1. So no mark. It's about as much as you can say about that. Frustrating 9 box for Paul Metivier. Never missed anything, but he finished with a 9 box. Paul Metivier is splitting... Yikes, what even is that? The bucket of 5 and the 10, that's a 4-drop. A split of 4. 7, 10, 4, 5, 2, 8. And well, yikes, he'll take a few more out, and that's the 4, 5, 7, 8. Left side accordion. Paul Metivier made this at Riverwalk Lanes, but it was the opposite side. And it looks like he'll take 2, leave 2. That's going to be a 52 half for Paul Metivier. Tony Del Monaco suddenly ahead by 11 and a ball at the half. 63 in a bonus versus 52 after 5 for Mr. Paul Metivier. In case you're just tuning in, we are at the halfway point of this match. It's currently 271 and a ball for Tony Del Monaco versus 286 for Paul Metivier. Relatively even in the total, and both bowlers have taken 1 game apiece. So I'd say at the halfway point, we are still effectively deadlocked. Let's see what Tony Del Monaco can do here. And he's not on the head pin. Drops 6? Yes, it will be 6. 69 after 5 will be Tony Del Monaco's first half. And he'll punch 2 and leave the 1, the 8, and the 10. 3 marks for Tony Del Monaco after 5. 13 for 26 on the head pin with 7 splits for Tony Del Monaco, and he'll take an 8 box. That's 77 after 6 for Mr. Del Monaco, who's totaled 47 in bonus pins between strikes and spares, averaging 5.9 per mark with 2 strikes and 6 spares this evening. 13 head pin shots, that's a 50% head pin completion percentage, and 7 splits. Del Monaco. He'll drop 6. Not on the head pin, he leaves the 1, 7, 10, 2. Gonna find out what Tony Del Monaco can do here. He'll take the back 2, the 7 and the 10, leaving the 1 and the 2 on the deck. Tony Del Monaco has only hit the head pin twice this game. Struggling a little bit here and there. And he'll pin it out for a 10 box, 87 and 7. Here comes Tony Del Monaco on lane 30. Was off to the left and got a spinning piece of wood. Taking out some additional pins in the back. That's a 1, 2, 3, 6, 10 on the deck. And he'll take the 2 out, leaving the right side 4 horsemen, 1, 3, 6, 10. And for the 10 box, he'll split the difference. That will be 8.95 after 8 for Tony Del Monaco. 3 spares and 5 not marks after 8 boxes. Crossing the 300 threshold after 3 with 2 boxes to go. He's over 100 average. 95 and in the 8th frame. Del Monaco on the head pin, and there's a strike for Tony Del Monaco, a definitive one. Funny thing was, before he even threw that, I just had a feeling one was coming. And he broke the pin setter. It was so good. There it goes. There's a thing about Candlepin pin setters. If you reset so soon after the previous reset, you have to wait a couple extra seconds because the pins aren't unloading, and sometimes the gate may come down and freeze for a couple seconds while it's still loading. Looks like it's broken, but it's not actually. That's a 7 split for Tony Del Monaco. 5, 7, 10. Some might call that the Matt Sushi special. Matt Sushi, my world's teammate, who is very good at apparently getting these. I think I've seen him get it maybe once or so. And Tony Del Monaco will foul that shot on the 7 pin, so it'll be a 7 fill on that strike, 112 in the 9th. But yes, Team Massholes, sponsored by Leda Lanes. Matt Susie's on it, I'm on it. And that's a Matt Susi special. It's a very difficult shot. It's like the high-low jack 1710 minus, except instead of the head pin, you've got the 5 to deal with, which makes the shot even harder. And especially if there's no wood. So that's going to be, I'm just going to confirm, that is 120 confirmed for Tony Del Monaco in the 10th. After 3 games, he's at 328. It's a great 3-game total for Tony Del Monaco. Averaging over 100. Paul Metivier, 3 for 5 in the head pin this game with a 52.5 with 1 split. Let's see how he can respond. He's down in the. He needs 68 to tie in the second game. And here he is, Paul Metivier. He's the right of the head pin. 3 left on the deck. 1, 2, 8. 1, 2, 8. And Paul will just miss off to the left. Bob Ballard talking about my match against him a couple of months ago. That's an 8 box for Paul Metivier. I don't know if that's getting picked up on the mic, but it's funny. I'm just listening to that and laughing in real time. Yeah, you had the Split King. You had a lot of them that day. Memories. Absolutely, yeah. You had red dots all over the place. Speaking of red dots all over the place, there's a split by Paul Metivier right there. It's a spread eagle minus the 2. And Paul Metivier plays the left side, and 3 almost takes 2. 3 takes 1. The 4 pin is the only one that didn't fall, and I thought that had a chance of going. Paul Metivier is a right-hander, so he had to play the right side of the lane with little crossover, so that was an impressive shot when you think about the physics and the little wiggle room needed to do that. That's a 9 box for Paul Metivier. That's 69 and 7. That's his 4th headpin shot of the game, and only 2 splits. 17 for 27 on the headpin with 6 splits. That's a 63 headpin quarterback rating for Paul Metivier. Tony Del Monaco sits at 50% after 3 full games. 15 for 30. Paul Metivier is on the headpin, drops 8, 6-10. Let's see if we can get a decent shot on this on the 6-10. Here he comes. Here's the ball, and that, yes, sir. That's a spare for Paul Metivier on the 6-10. 79 and a bonus in the 8th. And he's going to have to go on a run to reach 120. Tony Del Monaco, who struggled in the second game with a 95, came roaring back with a 120, and Paul Metivier with a weirdly thin hit on the head pin. Drops 5, and you saw that. It was like a small, like, microcosm of a black hole on the 1-3, on the 1-2 and the 3. That was a pocket shot, if you could believe that. That's a 7-9-10-4-5. Paul Metivier is going to be just a little bit off the 5 pin. He'll take a few and leave the 4 and the 7. And that might shut the door, potentially, for the 3rd game for Paul Metivier. That'll be 8, 92, and 9. And he needs a triple strike. Okay, so it's not impossible, but Metivier has a long road ahead to try to get to 122. Well, I guess he could get 2 strikes and an 8 fill to tie, or 2 strikes and a 9 fill to win. All right, so that's the minimum benchmark, and there goes that. There goes that hope. That's a 7 drop for Metivier, 1-3 in the 9. So he'll get close, but he'll keep the total interesting at least. And will he get the spare? And the pins just won't cooperate. It looked like it could have potentially been a spare, but things just didn't really shake out that way. And he'll finish out with a 10 at least for 102 for Paul Metivier, and that will put him at 336 for the 3-game total, still up by 8 overall in grand total pinfall, but that will be another game in Tony Del Monaco's favor. Current point spread is 4-2. Tony Del Monaco, the away bowler, with more points right now than Paul Metivier, but Paul Metivier holding on to the total. We'll come back to that thought about the total at the end of the match because that's worth 4 additional points. So that's still up for grabs, and it's a very small margin in terms of the lead, only 8 for Paul Metivier, so that's the current situation. And as I look up to the board, that is confirmed, so we are in the current...
Yep, yeah, my numbers are matching up there. Yep.
And we are all good. Candlepin scoring is always fun. Again, it's a 3-way handshake, but my stream score is matching what's up there. And we're just going to go with that. Again, stream scoreboard, if it ever falls off or goes completely wacky, it's not the official score. You may have caught Money Match 15 on Candlepin Bowling Network this past weekend. I streamed that live with Justin Scally, and we had a rather... oops. Wrong window. We had a rather interesting day. Not because of the bowlers or anything. It was just because had a bit of a scoring glitch on my scoreboard early on, and unfortunately, it was one of those situations where I knew what was wrong, but I couldn't fix it because it was a thing where we probably would have had to pause the entire match for about 5 minutes to get it done, or to get it fixed, and it was one of those things where I just really couldn't get it fixed. It was a matter of just inputting the wrong names and the wrong data in the wrong place, and so if you watch that money match, you may notice that the totals are all over the place, so you might have to do some math on your own just to figure out who's winning and who's losing, but hey, the individual game scores, I believe, were all intact, so I'd like to big thanks and big shout out to Justin Scally for covering me while we're dealing with that. That's a Cleary for Tony Del Monaco all the while. Again, our lecture about Bob Cleary early. That's the 4 horsemen, the opposite sleeper that's not in the corner. And Tony Del Monaco will take 2 and leave 3 on the Cleary. And he'll take the last 3. So Tony Del Monaco is having trouble with marks, but at least he's pinning it out. That's 20 after 2 with 2 10 boxes in a row for Tony Del Monaco. 50% on the head pin. That's about where he's hovering. Paul Metivier is at 63%. Both bowlers with a lot of splits tonight. 8 for Del Monaco, 7 for Metivier. Here comes Tony Del Monaco splitting 7, and that was a weird split. 3, 7, 8. It's a very interesting split for Tony Del Monaco. 3, 7, 8. There's a piece of wood in front of the 3. And he's going to play that. And yeah, that's effectively, I think, the best way he could have possibly played it. So he's left with a 7 pin. It's going to be a 9 or 10. Will he get his third 10 box in a row? Join me and find out. And I think that stayed on. Just barely stayed on, but it stayed on. 3 10 boxes in a row for Tony Del Monaco. 30 after 3 for Mr. Del Monaco. Oh, and that will be a right side half Worcester for Tony Del Monaco now. So when you punch out the 2 and the 8 or the 3 and the 9, that is the half Worcester situation. Comes Tony Del Monaco on the half Worcester conversion attempt, and an attempt it sure is. He was on the object pin in the object pocket, but he left the 5, the 7, and the 10. This will be a difficult one. This is the Matt Susi special again. Second time we've seen that tonight, and he'll miss everything. That'll be a 7 box, breaking the 10 box streak. 37 after 4 for Tony Del Monaco. So 37 after 4 for Mr. Del Monaco. 2 for 4 in the head pin with 1 split this game. And he's on the head pin there and drops 9. 4 pins left on the deck. The 4 pin is all that's left for the spare shot. For Mr. Del Monaco, single pin spare, and oh, he just barely gets it. And he's still, oh my goodness, the look on his face is great. He was hoping and praying that would stay on and just get the slight tap on that pin, and it does. 3 tens and a spare for Tony Del Monaco in a 7 box. That's 47 to be continued after 5. Halfway through the 4th game for Tony Del Monaco at the end of the first quarter of the 4th game. Paul Metivier now will step up to bowl his 5 in the 2nd quarter of the 4th game. Stay tuned here on the Atlantic Candlepin Single Store. Class B North Round 11 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Riverwalk Lanes, Tony Del Monaco versus Leda Lanes' Paul Metivier. I'm Steve Kelly on the call. The Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. Again, it's great to have you along. Also for 3-Ball Spare Conglomerate, check it out on YouTube. Also on Facebook and Twitch.tv. So check that out whenever you have a chance for other great matches and the like. That's Paul Metivier dropping 7, splitting 7, 7, 10, 4. And Paul Metivier will take 2 and leave 1. And I do understand it. I'm just looking at my network statistics. We're having a little bit of instability with the Wi-Fi here at Leda Lanes tonight, it looks like. So if you're watching this live and it ends up kind of becoming a bit of a slideshow or kind of garbled, I am recording this, and I will be uploading this to YouTube later on. So if you experience issues where the stream is dropping out or pocketing out or artifacting or whatever, I will have a Golden Master copy that I'll upload to YouTube later on. And Paul Metivier, all the while, will drop 8 to 8 on the deck. 2 in the sleeper 8 for a spare. Harder than it looks, but the piece of wood in between the 2 and the 8 might make this percentage icon from an aerial view a bit more of a certainty, but it starts with hitting it, and Paul Metivier went way off to the left. And he'll take the sleeper and leave the 2. That's a 9 box for Metivier. That puts him at 18 after 2. That's currently where we stand. Paul Metivier, 3 strikes, 7 spares. Tony Del Monaco, also 3 strikes and 7 spares. Paul Metivier currently looking at a 66% quarterback rating, 51% for Tony Del Monaco. And will it be another strike? The 6-pin is wiggling. And it is still thinking about it. Still thinking about it, and it's done thinking about it. 6-pin decides to go nearly horizontal, 45 degrees even, but it stands back up and fights. And it loses that fight, though. That's a spare for Paul Metivier, 28 after 3, and a bonus. Game on. Paul Metivier 1 mark this game, matching Tony Del Monaco's 1 mark. Let's see where we go from here. Paul Metivier will take a nice 8 fill. 6-10. 36 after 3. Paul Metivier has 28 strikes, 110 spares, and 114 tens for the season. 50% perfect box percentage and 5,400 seasonal total pins. And there's another spare for Paul Metivier on the 6-10, 46 after 4. Paul Metivier has 4 matches at or over 550 in grand total pinfall. He has no matches yet at or over 600. He has 1 out of his 10 matches with shutout victories, 5 out of his 10 matches with double-digit wins. He has a 25.71 per 50 head pin average per match. And I believe that's going to be a 4 fill. Excuse me, a 5 fill for Paul Metivier. Missed the head pin there, 51 after 4. 13687, and 13697, excuse me. He missed the object pin, collided with the 6 and the 9. 137 are left. Paul Metivier will take 2 and leave 1. 7 pin just doesn't cooperate. That's 60 after 5 for Paul Metivier. 60 after 5 versus 47 and a bonus for Tony Del Monaco. Potentially Paul Metivier is at relatively stable ground halfway through the 4th game. It's a difference of 21 in the grand total pinfall in Paul Metivier's favor and 13 in the game. Of course, that's not counting Tony Del Monaco's impending fill here on the spare that he had in the 5th frame. So we'll see where we go from here. Tony Del Monaco. Anthony Del Monaco of Riverwalk Lanes. He's off to the right of the head pin, drifted off to the right, but filled with 6, 53 after 5. That reduces the game deficit to 7 for Tony Del Monaco. Paul Metivier holds on to it by 7 and has the total by 15. And will he spare it up? Will he wrap around? And oh my... Whoa, that is unreal. I thought that was going to be a spare. I tell you. We've seen that at least 2 times tonight, and that's a 10 box for Tony Del Monaco. What could have been a spare and just what ended up being bad luck resulted in a 10 box. It's Tony Del Monaco on lane 30. He's off to the right. 1, 2, 5, 8, 9 for Tony Del Monaco. It's going to be an interesting setup. And will he spare it up? And there we go. The sleeper pin goes that time. That's a spare for Tony Del Monaco. He wasn't going to let that happen twice. That's 73 and a bonus for Tony Del Monaco in the 7th. The Tony Del Monaco Grand Prix at Leda Lanes. If you ever been to Kinsley House of Pizza in Nashua, New Hampshire? Very old arcade machine by Sega called Monaco Grand Prix. Fun fact, it's one of the very few arcade machines that does not run off of a CPU. It's actually surprisingly very like borderline analog in how it functions. And it's also resilient. It survived a fire at Kinsley House of Pizza on Kinsley Street in Nashua. But yeah, the name of the game is called Monaco GP. And that tangent is brought to you by Tony Del Monaco for a nearly matching last name. 7-10 split for Tony Del Monaco. And he gets a little stuffed by the wood, and that's going to be an 8 box. And that is indeed 89 after 8 for Tony Del Monaco. He's 4 for 8 on the head pin with 2 splits. 19 head pin shots for 38 with 10 splits in the overall match with 2 boxes to go. Currently at a 417 3.8 game total. Tony Del Monaco on the head pin. Drops 9. Almost a split, but the 5 pin falls late. The 7 pin is left on the deck. For the spare. Oh, and he's just off to the right of the 7 pin by centimeters. Didn't quite work for Tony Del Monaco there. And he sails into the channel, and that will be a 9 box for 98 and 9 for Mr. Del Monaco. Tony Del Monaco, on average, goes 27.67 for 50 on the head pin this season. His split average per match is 12.50. Again, his home house is Riverwalk Lanes in Amesbury, Massachusetts. He's taken 38 points in his past 5 matches, averaging 7.6 per match. In his past 5 matches, he's totaled 28-10 total pins, grand total pinfall, averaging 562 per match. And that's a 6 drop for Tony Del Monaco, 1, 2, 4, 7. Left side 4 horsemen for the spare. Will he run him down? He'll take 2 and leave 4. Leave 2 and, take 2 and leave 2. Apparently I can't count anymore. That's the 4 and the 7 on the deck for Tony Del Monaco. Tony Del Monaco, he's 12 for 12 for matches at or over 500 grand total pinfall. That's a 10 box for Tony Del Monaco. That'll be a 108 4th game for Tony Del Monaco for a 4-game total of 436. 50% quarterback rating, 20 for 40. 10 splits, totaling 68 in marks. Mark fills, averaging 6.2 per mark. 3 strikes, 8 spares. He's advantaged in the game by 48, and that's what Paul Metivier has to match. But Paul Metivier has a 60 half, so let's see what happens here. Paul Metivier was to the right of the head pin, and it's the 1-7-10-2. Or 1-2-7-10, if you like the metric system. Longest streak of match... I'm sorry, that's not Paul Metivier. Paul Metivier, his split average per match is 13.71. And again, his home house is here at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Paul Metivier just misses the spare, leaves the 10 on the deck. In his past 5 matches, Paul Metivier has taken 40 points, averaging 8 per match. He has totaled 27.58 in total pinfall in his past 5 matches, averaging 551.6. And that'll be a 9 box for Paul Metivier, 69 in 6. 8 of his 10 matches have been at or over 500 this season. His longest streak of strings at or over 100 has been 12. His longest streak of matches at or over 550 has been 3. And his longest winning streak of greater than 7 points per match has been 3. And oh my goodness, it's the screw you shot making its unbeloved appearance once again, this time at Leda Lanes. It happened to Paul Metivier at Riverwalk Lanes on my stream last time, I believe. I made a YouTube short out of it even, I think. And he doesn't make much out of it. He takes the 6 and leaves everything else. So the 1, 8, 9, and 6 are down, and everything is up. Everything else is up, that is. And Paul Metivier will just mix some Candlepin art down there. It's a 6 box, leaving the 5, the 2, the 3, and the 10. That's a weird leave. 6 box and 75 and 7 for Paul Metivier. Paul Metivier averages 6.8 points per home match, so he's home this evening. When he's away on the road, he averages a little better, 7.8 points per away match. In his past 5 matches, he has had 13 strikes, 65 spares, and 50 tens. And he'll leave the bucket of 5 on the right side. That's the 5, 6, 3, 9, 10 for Paul Metivier. In his past 5 home matches, he's taken 34 points, averaging 6.8 points per match. And again, away, he took 39 points, averaging 7.8 per match, so better one away than home for Paul Metivier. 4 out of his 10 matches have been without double-digit wins this season. Paul Metivier has the 19th highest Class B North average at 108. No spare for Paul Metivier. Working on a 10 box, 7, 8, 9, or 10. He'll punch 2 and leave 1. That's a 9 box, 84 and 8 for Paul Metivier. Out of his 8 boxes this game, he's gone 6 for 8 on the head pin with 1 split. 25 for 38 on the head pin in the entire match with 8 splits. So he's already 5 ahead of Tony Del Monaco in the head pin department, and he still has 2 boxes to go. Or he's 2 boxes behind Tony Del Monaco right now. So he's doing better in the head pin department. To the right of the head pin, he leaves the 6-pack. Check his ID. We ID at Leda Lanes, and you should check out Kegler's Den at Leda Lanes. Awesome drinks, awesome taps, awesome food at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. The 6-pack, sponsored by Kegler's Den at Leda Lanes. Check it out. Paul Metivier decides to go dry for the second ball. Goes off to the left. You know, it's dry January and March. I'm not judging anybody. But he'll take the 6-pack on the third ball. Changes his mind. That's a 10 box, and that, actually, believe it or not, is a Paul Grant special. Also, miss the second, get the third. $1 donation to Candlepins per cancer per occurrence for Paul Metivier, 94 in 9. That is confirmed. Speaking of Candlepins for Cancer, you should go to candlepins4cancer.com. Run by Al Johnson and Paul Grant. Great charity, great bowling tournaments, and just great everything overall. And you should check out candlepins4cancer.com. Great cause for assisting bowlers in the Candlepin bowling, people in the Candlepin bowling community in dire need of cancer treatments and all that. And I can tell you, I've heard some testimonials where, but check out that spare by Paul Metivier all the while. 5 dropping a spare. But it's just one of those things where it's just kind of you give and you might, you never know when someone might need it, or God forbid you might need it. So check it out. Candlepins4cancer.com, or reach out to Paul Grant on Facebook, or Candlepin Chat for the latest updates and all that. I believe there might have been a website issue for Candlepins4cancer.com recently, now that I think of it, but I think, as far as I know, it might be all set. Again, that's what I'm saying. Just check out Candlepin Chat, just in case my knowledge on that is not correct. Anyways, that was a 6 fill on the spare for Paul Metivier. 446 is his 5-game total with that 110. And then 436 is the confirmed 4-game total for Tony Del Monaco. Paul Metivier just barely taking the 4th game. That 6 fill basically did it. He needed 4 to tie, and he took 6. So, wow, Paul Metivier just barely squeaking by. We have a 4-4 point split right now, and differential in the total of just 10. We're back to where we were in the first game. Paul Metivier, 446 to Tony Del Monaco's 436. At the end of the first game, it was Tony Del Monaco who had the first game by 10. Now at the end of the fourth, Paul Metivier has the total by 10. He took the game by 2, and again we are at 4-love between Tony Del Monaco and Paul Metivier as we move to start the fifth and final game, which is worth a lot of points, especially when the total is this close. It's a difference of 10, so it's basically a handicap of 10 in favor of Paul Metivier going into this fifth and final game. The grand total pinfall point award is 4 points. So at this point, you can obviously take 2 points for taking the fifth and final game, but you can take 4 for grand total pinfall all the while. So this fifth and final game is big. Tony Del Monaco starts out with a 6 drop to the right of the head pin. The 1, the 2, the 9, and the 10 are on the deck. And here he goes. Trying to spare it up, and he will succeed in that attempt to spare it up. That's 10 in a bonus after 1 for Mr. Tony Del Monaco. Excellent spare. And Paul Metivier coming back being like, what'd I miss? Tony Del Monaco, his longest streak of strings at or over 100 has been 13. His longest streak of matches at or over 550 has been 2. His longest winning streak of greater than 7 points per match has been 4 this season. And he'll drop 6, leaving the 4 horsemen left side. 1, 2, 4, 7. Piece of wood kind of hanging around between the 2, 4, 7 out front. Up against the lip, and it turned in the light a little bit. Tony Del Monaco will run down those 4 horsemen with the help of that wood, though. Did a great job sparing that up. That's 26 after 2, and a bonus for Tony Del Monaco, who averages 10 points per away match. He's away tonight, so just to give you some foreshadowing, we'll see if he ends up holding on to that. I believe it can be a 10-4 split, potentially. Yeah, if we ended the match right now, actually, Tony Del Monaco would take 10 points. But he averages 8.33 points per home match, so just like Paul Metivier is doing a little bit worse when he's home versus away, but he's away tonight. In his past 5 matches, Tony Del Monaco has taken 16 strikes, 62 spares, and 57 tens. In his past 5 away matches, he's taken 48 points. In his past 5 home matches, he's taken 40 points. That's an average of 9.6 points per match when away and 8 per match when home. Number of matches with double-digit wins for Tony Del Monaco this season is 3 for 12. Here he comes, Tony Del Monaco. With that really animated first ball motion, he drops 6 and splits 6. 2 6 fills in a row, two 16 boxes in a row for 32 after 2 for Mr. Tony Del Monaco. Tony Del Monaco has quite a few superlatives in Class B in particular. And he won't get the 3rd mark there. That was an admittedly difficult shot, especially if you're a left-handed bowler. That's a heck of a time trying to convert that. It was the 3, 6, 10, 7, and he took the 6 and the 10, leaving the 3 and the 7. But that's a nice 10 box for Tony Del Monaco, 42 after 3. This might be a great time to tell you about Tony Del Monaco's recent match versus Steve Davis in round 13, an away game at Portsmouth Bowl-O-Rama, where he threw a 630 series and took 12 points against Steve Davis. He threw a 110, a 125, a 121, a 114, and a 160. High-powered series for Tony Del Monaco, and that's that first ball was a little less than high-powered. He took the 7-pin and only the 7-pin. Takes 2 more. 3 down, 7 up. In that match against Steve Davis, he had 5 strikes, 19 spares, and 8 tens. 27 head pin shots for 50 and 15 splits that match. And oof, that is really going to be a 3-box? My goodness, that's going to be a 3-box for 45 after 4 for Tony Del Monaco. Kind of tapping the brakes on the momentum a little bit there after the 2 spares and a strike. 45 after 4 for Mr. Del Monaco, whose home lanes, again, is he calls home Mark Ritchie's house in Amesbury, Massachusetts, Riverwalk Lanes. Tony Del Monaco has the number 3 highest Class B North average at 112.5. He has the number 3 Class B North high single at 160. The number 3 Class B North total strikes at 39. The number 10 Class B North high, the 10th Class B North highest average strike fill at 8.18. That's a lot of words. He has the 4th highest Class B North high series at 630. The 5th highest Class B North total spares at 152 so far, not counting this match. He has the 7th highest Class B North average spare fill at 6.35. And that's a 7 drop, not on the head pin, leaving the 189 for Tony Del Monaco, sort of the inverse version of what Paul Metivier experienced on lane 30 just a little while ago. Tony Del Monaco has the 2nd highest Class B North perfect box percentage at 54%, and the 10th highest Class B North fewest average pins left at 42.33. And that's a 9 box for Tony Del Monaco. That's 54 after 5 with those 2 spares. That 3 box kind of put a damper on everything, but 54 after 5 still ain't bad. So that's 4.5 games down for Tony Del Monaco of 5. 490 so far and counting. It's now time for Paul Metivier to make some magic. Here comes the magic. Wasn't on the head pin, got a decent mix in the back, drops 8, 1 and 2 in the deck. And Metivier, will he take the spare out? He sure will. It was a gimme, it was a layup. LeBron James, 10 after 1 and a bonus in the first for Paul Metivier versus Tony Del Monaco, who also had a spare in the first and filled with 6. So that'll be the benchmark. Total was only within 10 before we started this 5th game between our 2 bowlers. Paul Metivier had it by 10. And Paul Metivier, once again, not on the head pin, but got a decent mix of 7, so he'll get a better fill than Tony Del Monaco in the first. 17 after 1 versus Tony Del Monaco, who had 16 after 1. 139. We'll see if he can get the double spare, and Paul Metivier missed the head pin. He took the 3 and the 9 and left the 1. Had that ball been just a little bit to the left, that would have been a double spare. And he'll take a 10 box as a consolation prize. 27 after 2 for Paul Metivier. Paul Metivier, his home house is at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. He's been a manager at Market Basket for 30 plus years. Definitely longer than I've been alive, basically. Put that in perspective. Paul Metivier drops 7-1-3-7. Paul Metivier's all-time high series high 5 is 666, and his all-time high single is 203. He bowled it in 1998, and look at that shot by Paul Metivier. Great spare. 37 and a bonus after 3 for Mr. Paul Metivier. Paul Metivier, several decades ago, he was averaging 119 at his peak. This is sort of his second win to bowling. He bowled a lot in like the 90s. That's a 6 right side check mark, 6 drop, 6 fill for Paul Metivier, 43 after 3. Paul Metivier returned to Candlepin bowling in 2017. This is sort of the second act for Paul Metivier in terms of bowling. And he takes 1, he takes the 5, leaves the 3, the 6, and the 10. Takes 2 more out. That'll be a 9 box. 52 after 4 from Mr. Metivier. He's from Fitchburg, Massachusetts. Now lives in Nashua, New Hampshire. One box to go to conclude the first half of the 5th game. And Paul Metivier will open it up with an 8 drop. 4-7. This is the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. We're just finishing the final first half of the night. And he'll take a 7, or he'll take the 7 and leave the 4 on the spare attempt. Offer not accepted. And Paul Metivier will pin it out for a 10. That will be 62 after 5. So Paul Metivier with an advantage of 18 in the total and 8 in the game. Still very close. I wouldn't call any of those leads comfortable. 62 after 5 for Paul Metivier and 54 after 5 for Tony Del Monaco. Very close match, and it's a big point sway. Whoever can go on a run in these last 5 will probably be able to take home the W in terms of the match. So we'll see what happens as we as you join us for the thrilling conclusion of the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour this evening at Leda Lanes in Massachusetts, Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Let's go. Split for Tony Del Monaco. Wow, I'm just forgetting the names of everything in the past 30 seconds here. That's the 5-2-7. And Tony Del Monaco, again, he's a left-handed bowler. He has to get an awkward semi-crossover, but not quite, to connect with the 2 and the 5. And he sailed between the 2 and the 7. He takes only the 7 on the third ball. That's going to be an 8 box. 62 and 6 for Tony Del Monaco, who's only gone 2 for 6 on the headpin this game, and both of those headpin shots have been splits. He's 22 for 46 on the headpin cumulatively tonight, and he's had 12 splits. 3 strikes, 10 spares, totaling 80 in Mark Phil's, averaging 6.2 per mark. That's down compared to Paul Metivier's 6.4, who totaled 96. To give you some perspective in the secondary stats. Again, it's a very close match overall, though, so secondary stats don't necessarily matter right now. That's a 6 drop for Tony Del Monaco. That's the 3, 4, 8, and 10. And not much he could have done with that. He pokes out 1. But he'll at least pin things out for a 10, making the best of it. With that 10 box, Tony Del Monaco's at 72 after 7. Just prepping my zoom camera. Zoom shot for if we have any interesting shots coming up here. 3 for 7 on the headpin Tony Del Monaco is, and there's another headpin shot. 4 for 8. A split of 5-10. Rough. Every headpin shot he's had this game has resulted in a split. And I've been there. You want to see some pain, watch my match yesterday, and I kind of have some similar struggles. Before we go tonight, I want to thank a couple folks, including our ACST committee members, like our ACST League Commissioner, Danny Finn, our Class B Treasurer, Corey Alisi, our statistician, Micah Imperato. There's a 10 box for Tony Del Monaco, making the most out of that split situation, 82 and 8. Always like to thank the staff at Leda Lanes for being super accommodating in this super busy place. I know when I walked in, I was surprised. I was like, "There's a lot of people here," and but we're still able to squeeze in the match, get some lanes, and all that. But always like to thank the folks at Leda Lanes. And that's a split. Another headpin shot and another split for Tony Del Monaco. You gotta hate to see that. That's the 4-6-3-10. And we saw this shot was made earlier, an inverse version of it, but Tony Del Monaco, no such luck. He crosses over and takes the 6. 3-4-10 left on the deck. And for the 79 or 10, he'll settle for an 8, 90 and 9. Yeah, just a wall of splits for Tony Del Monaco. Yeah, look at that split stack. Boxes 3, 6, 7, 8, and 9, all splits. There were headpin shots too, but no rest for the headpin shots. So Tony Del Monaco, oh, and he's just off to the left. A little worried now. The total is only within 18 before we count this 10 box. Tony Del Monaco is, I think now we're in a bit of a red alert situation for the total. And the game is only roughly 28, maybe a little bit more than 28 after this box, but Paul Metivier may squeak out. Wow, he punches the 3, just getting these bad breaks at the worst possible time. 7, 8, 9, 10, 6, 1 for Tony Del Monaco for the 3rd ball of the final box of the match. For him, at least. He's at 526 and he'll punch the headpin, and that's it. Wow. How many times can you get ripped off? Anyways, that's a 95 game 5 and a 531 5-game total for Tony Del Monaco. And that is confirmed. My goodness. That was one heck of a last half and a rough half. Every single headpin shot resulted in a split. There was just no respite for that for Tony Del Monaco. He went 50% on the headpin overall, 25 for 50 with 15 splits. And here comes Paul Metivier now. He's on the headpin as well, and he's got a similar taloned spread eagle. He connects with the 1, the 5, and the 9, leaving the 8. And then the rest of the eagle on the deck. And Paul Metivier will helicopter over on the left back rear corner. But he's got nothing else. No. So it's going to be a 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10. He'll make a 9 out of it. That's 71 as 6 for Paul Metivier. $71 as 6. It's suddenly just the pins have kind of gone dead for both of our bowlers here. We'll see if Paul Metivier can break the curse. He's currently at 517. He needs 14 for the total. Or 15 for the total, technically. 14 to tie, 15 to win, and 24 to tie in the game, and 25 to win. Paul Metivier will drop 6, 4 horsemen right side, 1, 3, 6, 10. And he'll run down the 4 horsemen for the spare. That's 81 and a bonus in the 7th. And now the total lead has dropped to 4 for Tony Del Monaco, and that may be fizzling away with this next fill from Paul Metivier. I don't think it's going to be an impossibility that he'll get 4 pins in the next 4 boxes for the total. Difference of 4 for 4 points. And there's your 4. Way more than 4. How about 9? That's a 9 fill for Paul Metivier, 90 and 7. That will be the total for Paul Metivier, so it's at least 8 points for Paul Metivier. And what the heck just happened? Okay. One moment. Just catching up on the scores here. I don't know if I just looked away or what, but looked like it was actually a strike on spare. Yeah, I'm going to double check on that. But again, just following the bowlers. I think that pin may have fallen last, and maybe I just went to the twilight zone there for a second. So don't mind me if you saw something I didn't. Let's see. Okay, so Paul Metivier now is at 118 after 9. You're just catching up with the scoreboard down there. I think I just got lost in my own sauce of the yapping. And anyways, 118 and 9 for Paul Metivier. Strike on spare, and then a 9. 8 fill on the strike, and then a 9 in the 9th. Here comes Paul Metivier onto the left of the headpin. Drops 3. A center diamond, the 1 diamond, and the 6 triangle. Trying to get in the habit of saying that, because it's way fewer syllables to say. And Paul Metivier misses the target pin. Pins are still mixing. Pins are still mixing. Got 2 extra pins than he bargained for. 1 in the 10 for the final ball, and that's a 10 box. 128 for Paul Metivier for a 5-game total of what looks like 574, and that's what I see down there. All right, we are in sync. All right, so Paul Metivier will take 10 points. Rallying in the 5th, and Tony Del Monaco just with some really rough luck in the 5th and final game. So he'll take 4 points, and Paul Metivier will take 10. That is the final results. Wow, that's all I got to say is wow. That was one heck of a 5th game that went in interesting places. So 574 for Paul Metivier, 531 Tony Del Monaco. Your final scores for the final time. 10 points for Metivier, 4 points for Del Monaco. 56% perfect box percentage for Del Monaco in particular, 50% for Paul Metivier, but the head pin percentage, Paul Metivier 60, Del Monaco 50. The splits, Tony Del Monaco went 15 splits, 5 more than Paul Metivier's 10. That kind of says it all right there. But Paul Metivier did have a higher head pin percentage. In the fills, Paul Metivier had better fills, totaling 114 versus Del Monaco's 80. Paul Metivier averaged 6.7 per mark, while Del Monaco averaged 6.2 per mark. So after all said and done, just looking at the final win-loss numbers, Paul Metivier will move to 83 and 71 with that 10-4 win. And Tony Del Monaco will go to 114 and 68. So still in decent standing, but Paul Metivier has definitely gained some ground this evening here at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. So anyways, folks, if you think Candlepin bowling looks fun, think it's your thing, and you live in New England, or you're willing just to come out to New England, or Eastern Canada, whichever, go to candlepin.org and click Go Bowling to find your nearest center. Places all over New England. Come check it out. Maybe even Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Same for Massachusetts and Maine as well. Or you can even go up to Moncton, New Brunswick in Canada, or even Albany, New York. Wherever it is, go to candlepin.org. Click Go Bowling to find your nearest center. Again, we talked about Candlepins for Cancer. Check that out. Run by Al Johnson and Paul Grant. Qualifying roll-offs for the tournaments are posted there, or you can just donate, whichever you want. And, of course, check out my channel, 3 Ball Spare, on YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. There's also plenty of other content to check out, such as Candlepin Bowling Network on YouTube and Instagram. There's also at Candlepin Bowling on TikTok and at Candlepin Bowling, at Candlepin Corner on YouTube, as well as the Atlantic Candlepin Single Store page on Facebook. That's the central hub for the ACST matches. And then there's also stuff such as Candlepin Chat on Facebook. Check it out, especially for tomorrow for the Easter Classic signups. If you're interested, those signups are going to be hot, so you're going to want to be fast. Check out alleychat.net or youtube.com/alleychat for Friday Night Pro League recaps, as well as classic Candlepin matches. But there's other channels that do that as well, such as Wolfman12395 and the Candlepin Bowling channel on YouTube. And then there's also, if you're into podcasts, there's 2 Candlepin Bowling podcasts that are prominent, such as Ripping the Rack and The Approach. Those are on YouTube and Facebook, respectively. Tony Levesque also runs a bang-up YouTube and TikTok channel, so check him out, as well as Charlie Collins. And anyway, so that should be just about it for us at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. This has been Tony Del Monaco at Paul Metivier. I'm Steve Kelly for the Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour. And we'll see you at the next Atlantic Candlepin Singles Tour match. Have a great one, everyone. Good night.